What's up guys, Duarte here with another Marvel Strike Force video, and in this video we're going to take a look at the best T4s for the PMTech team, and this is going to be based on my standards, and I have very high standards for T4s, and it's from 1 to 5, and 0 is a number, plus some T4s might be essential even if overall they are not the best T4 ever, but some T4s they change the team enough that they become essential even they might not be that great, or depends on the scenario. So if you find information on this video helpful, make sure you share it with your friends on Facebook and Discord. If you're new to my channel, I hope you consider subscribing and make sure you smash that like button. So with that said, let's get started with Wasp. And with Wasp on her basic, she increases the damage just a little bit. So this is a garbage T4, it's a 0, and I definitely don't recommend it. On the special, it increases the amount of times she attacks from the possible 2 to 2 single target damage. So for me this is a 0 as well. Now the ultimate attacks multiple targets for 50% extra damage. That's nice, but only damage, nothing else. So in my opinion, that for me is a 1. And then finally we have the passive, which increases the amount of turns that you have immunity from 1 to 2 for the entire team. So that's decent, but because this team usually starts with evade, and the situations where you need evade and immunity at the same time are very small, and you'll probably only use this team or the full team on blitz, or maybe in the raids, some raids, something like that. So in my opinion, this T4 is definitely not worth it, so this one is a 0 as well. Okay, so now we are going to take a look at stature. Let's take a look at stature. And on her basic, she increases her damage of the single target. That's it. So this is also a 0. Then on the special, it lowers the energy cost from 4 to 3 and increases the amount of base damage that she does to single target. Now, depending on the situation, you might consider doing this T4 or not. In my opinion, I'm not going to do this T4 because this T4 would be good on blitz and maybe once again in some kind of raid. For Dark Dimension, where I'm going to use this character mostly, having the 3 energy instead of 4 on the taunt is mostly useless for the specific setup that I'm using. If you are using a different setup, maybe, but still I would not consider. Let's say it like this: if you have AntMan on your team, then this T4 is decent. If you don't have AntMan on your team, then this T4 is not great. So overall, maybe a 2 or a 1 or something like that. I don't really like it. Now let's go for the ultimate. So the ultimate increases the damage that she does to single target, but adjacent targets as well, by 60%, and increases the amount of energy from 1 to 3 random allies, and for 2 to 5 allies, all the PMTech allies. So you are increasing from 3 energy to 10 energy. That's just massive. And this T4 not only is at a very high value, it's definitely essential for this team. So maybe a 4 plus with essential tag, or maybe a 5 plus essential. This is a very good T4. Maybe a 4 with essential tag. This is a very good T4 if you are using it on blitz, raids, or Dark Dimension. It's going to be essential for the team in order to use their abilities as often as possible. Now let's take a look at the passive, and the passive is, I would say, a 3-star and also essential. Now this is going to be essential because of the gaining focus and focus to PMTech allies. It's going to be very important that you give as much focus as possible to Ghost. Ghost is going to apply offense down to the enemies. I'm not sure if it's everywhere or if it's in Dark Dimension. Whichever way, Ghost needs as much focus as possible, so this part alone is going to be extremely important. Now, this part of also giving health to the PIMTech allies on Dark Dimension is also important, but not that relevant. So that's why I say that this is probably a 3-star, but with essential tag, because once again, and especially because we have a Ghost at low yellow stars and maybe also low red stars and so on, and we are not sure if that character is going to be premium only or something like that. I think it's going to be. So I would consider this to be one of the essential T4s that we need for this team, even that is not the best T4 ever. Okay, so now let's take a look at AntMan. And AntMan on his basic increases the single target damage, so that's garbage, a 1 or a 0. Then on the special, it gives higher chance for a Wasp to assist. This is on a single target damage. Now Wasp, she doesn't do that much damage, and single target, I mean, I don't see the value, but whatever. It's a 1 star, 0 stars, whatever. In terms of the ultimate attacks all enemies, so it's a global attack and applies slow to all enemies, but it has a 6 energy cost. Now, the T4 increases the base damage 40%. AntMan doesn't have the highest base damage ever, and because this has no other utility, because it's on a long cooldown and you might use it on the first turn and never again, I don't think this is a good T4. So even that attacks all enemies, I think it's still a 1 in terms of value. Now, the passive of AntMan. So if you apply the T4, you have higher chance of gaining assist with AntMan. And you also get that if you have 4 or more characters on spawn, you will get evade for all the PIMTech allies. But this is only on Dark Dimension. So honestly, if you are not using AntMan on Dark Dimension, this is a trash T4. Especially because you don't want AntMan to get the assist, you want Yellow Jacket to get the assist. So if you are increasing his chance of getting assist, that's going to be worse for you. So this is a garbage T4, it's very misleading, this first part of the assist. And then the second one, it only works if you have the entire team on Dark Dimension. And I definitely don't suggest using the entire PIMTech team on Dark Dimension. So let's move to the next character, Yellow Jacket. And the Yellow Jacket on his basic does single target damage, increases damage a little bit with the T4. In my opinion, this is garbage, 1 star, 0 stars. Now the special is a little bit okay. It steals health from the enemies, so depending on the game mode you are doing, if it's in some raid nodes, it might be decent. If you are facing like Ultimus mob or something like that, in situations like that, the 30% it might be okay, and it also gives self-healing. But on top of that, it doesn't add anything up. It's on a 5 energy cooldown. If you have the entire team and you have T4s on the other characters, this might be okay, but in my opinion it's still a high 2 or a low 3. I really don't like the overall mechanic of this ability, so I can't really consider a good T4. Now we're going to take a look at the ultimate for Yellow Jacket, and the ultimate for Yellow Jacket is pretty decent. It attacks single target plus adjacent targets for a nice amount, and then it repeats the attack once again. Now, because it's only damage, the T4 doesn't increase the value or the utility of this ability in any regard. So in my opinion, this is once again a low 3, a high 2 maybe. I would not consider this T4 unless you have him at 5 red stars or higher or something like that. Now we're going to take a look at the passive for Yellow Jacket, and it increases the drain. It increases the drain of this character by 10%. That's it. So for me, in my opinion, this is a 1 or a 0 star. Like, this is completely garbage T4. And finally, let's take a look at Ghost and her T4s. So the basic, it increases the damage of single target by just a little bit. Now this is not great, and she counters by 100% thanks to her passive. But I still think the damage output that she will be providing with her basic and even with the counters is not going to be high enough to for me to recommend this T4. Like, her base damage even at gear tier 15 level 80 is only 20,000, so this is very low. So I cannot see the value on this T4. It has a little bit of value, but not too much value. So maybe a 1 plus or a low 2. I don't see higher than that. Then on her special, we have an increase on the single target damage by 50%. That's it. Single target damage, nothing else. So I definitely don't recommend this T4. This is a 1 or a 0. Now on her ultimate is actually a very good T4, probably a 5. Not only we are increasing the multiplier damage to all enemies, so she attacks all enemies with her ultimate, but we are also increasing the amount of health that we steal from all enemies as well. So this is a double attack, one that relies on the base damage and on a multiplier, the other one that relies on the health of the enemies. So based on that, I definitely recommend this T4. It's an essential T4. If it's a 5 or a 4, maybe a 4, a high 4. Probably not good enough to be a 5, but it's definitely a good T4. And once again, it's an essential T4 for this team, but specifically for this character. Finally, we are going to take a look at Ghost's passive, and this is a massive wall of text, but unfortunately the T4 affects only a small part of it. So as you can see, it increases the amount of healing that Ghost is going to be able to give to the allies from 10% to 15% whenever they dodge. So that's going to be a good way to increase the sustain of this team, but does this team requires sustain? I'm not sure. Maybe it doesn't require that much sustain, but it's a okay T4. Then it increases the dodge chance from 20 to 25. That's not a huge increase, it's just a little bit. So I don't see too much value there. Then the chance of countering goes from 50% to 100%. But once again, like we saw before, the basic has okay multiplier, as we saw, but the assistant counter only has 200% chance of 20% damage multiplier. And her base damage is very low. So once again, you have these two situations, low base damage and low multiplier. So even that this is decent, it really depends on if you have her with very high red stars or not. Because if the enemy has a lot of armor, your low base damage and low multiplier might not be able to bypass the armor of the enemy. So it depends on the target of the enemy, depends on your red stars, yellow stars. So maybe this is a T4 that I would do on a later date rather than right now when we have it with low yellow stars and low red stars. And then it also increases the healing by 10% whenever you are on Dark Dimension and whenever a pink tech ally dodges. So instead of a total of 20% on Dark Dimension, it will increase to 30%. So I don't really see the value here. Maybe it's a low 3, but it's definitely not essential for this team, especially right now when we have ISO 8, and the ISO 8 is also able to provide a lot of healing. So those are my recommendations in terms of T4s for the PIM Tech team. If you guys want me to give my recommendations to any other team based on my criteria, let me know in the comments below. So if you like this video, you know what to do. Smash that like button like a boss. If you found the information on this video helpful, make sure you share it with your friends on Facebook and Discord. If you are new to my channel, I hope you consider subscribing, and I will catch you guys later.